The other members are seen with very interesting hairstyles, very, very dramatic makeup, and then here she is with, brown hair, very simple makeup, very minimalistic look. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. YG already f***ed with my play button. I'm not trying to get sued. Hi, welcome to an episode of Kpop Investigations. My name is Angelina, and this is basically a series where I take a specific subject and essentially do a little bit of a deep dive into it, and at the end, share with you my super scientific results. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about BLACKPINK Jisoo's mistreatment as showcased in YG's not-so-strategic posting of BLACKPINK's teaser photos for their upcoming comeback with How You Like That. So let's get started. Actually, I'm going to stop you right there to remind you to subscribe, like, comment, and share this video with friends you don't have because I don't either. Okay, so what exactly has been going on? I'll get you up to date. Honestly, for a really long time now, a lot of blinks have been speculating, or rather, shining a spotlight on the fact that Jisoo seems to be left out of a lot of things, or seems to be forgotten a lot more than the other members. However, more recently, Blink Twitter was in an absolute frenzy because of the way YG was posting BLACKPINK's teaser photos. Because, as you can see, she is nowhere to be seen. If you take a look, the way in which they were posting said photos allowed for one member per line of 3 to be in the center. Now, within each center photo, we did, of course, have all 4 members within the thread. But of course, when you look at the big picture, she never got a center position. So fans, of course, were very quick to point their concern, whether that was constructively or, terribly. And it seems, for the first time in history, YG actually listened. On Wednesday, June 17th, after the release of Rosé, and Jennie's individual teaser videos, we saw that YG was starting to delete all of their teaser pictures altogether, and then re-uploading them in a completely different sequence that centered all 4 members, rather than having a blank photo, 4 pictures, and then another blank photo. So we can see a major difference, right? Now the pictures are cut in a way where you can feature 4 members rather than just centering one. So some of you might be asking, why is this a big deal? Well, it does seem that Jisoo is the member who is the most often forgotten. Another more recent example of this is Billboard, when they posted this photo of BLACKPINK and they just cut her out to seemingly fit the Instagram story format. But more importantly, we also have instances where she is seemingly treated differently within the structures of YG Entertainment. Some fans pointing out how she is actually the member who is the most covered within their choreography. So if you didn't know, BLACKPINK is a 4-member girl group, and consequently, being an even number, sometimes in the choreography they need to cover each other to center one member. And this is actually quite a common thing among 3rd and 4th gen girl group choreography, G-fan choreographies, or even in G-idol choreographies. Now I say girl groups because oftentimes I've noticed the same type of formations. However, interestingly enough, this was also not the most common among 2nd gen girl group choreographies that also had an even number of members. For example, 21, whose choreographies were very rarely covering each other to center another, and even Sistar, who seemingly found a way around this as well. Now, this would be a subject for another video. However, if you're interested, definitely let me know, and also your theories as to why you think this is kind of a change between 2nd and 3rd gen, why you think idols started covering each other more to center a specific member. Now, one fan in particular did a very scientific study showcasing this issue. I am that fan. So statistically, Lisa was covered the least, with her only being covered a total of 9 times within their choreography. Jennie was 2nd least covered, being covered a total of 10 times. Rosie was 3rd least covered by being covered a total of 12 times, and then can you guess who was last? Jisoo was covered a total of, drumroll please, 22 times. Wow. Blinks really have way too much time on their hands. That's ridiculous. On another YG related note, we also see that a lot of fans have noticed that her styling tends to be the most simple among every single member. And this is actually perfectly showcased within the teaser photos that they have released for their upcoming comeback. The other members are seen with very interesting hairstyles, very, very dramatic makeup, and then here she is with, you know, brown hair, very simple makeup, very minimalistic look. And not that there's anything inherently wrong with that, but this will come into play for theories that I'm going to express a little bit later on in the video. But the entire point is that she seems to be the member who is most often forgotten, even within my own thumbnails. There was an instance where I managed to exclude her somehow, and I'm going to explain to you the reasoning behind why. So I was trying to emulate these Mnet thumbnails, and there are 3 different slides. So in my head, I was just like, okay, I'm going to pick the 3 best pictures, the 3 pictures that really will grab people's attentions the most. Not really considering the fact that people would get angry because there are 4 members. But it seems that every time I would find a picture of her, it was either low quality or it seemed a little bit awkward. In fact, for this stage in specific, let me show you the pictures that I had at my disposal. We have this one where it's very low quality and she's like sitting down in an awkward position. Then we have this one, which is also pretty awkward. And so honestly, I just went with the 3 best pictures that I could find. It wasn't really a game of like, okay, which 3 Blackpink members am I going to showcase today? It was just which 3 pictures are going to grab people's attention the most. And honestly, I didn't even think of it because I was just like, okay, I usually do sets of 3 for these things, so I'm going to pick 3 pictures. It was pretty dumb, but anyways. And while we're here, actually, let's take a look at the other members' photos that were reposted for this stage as well. As we can see, they're all a lot more numerous and feature much better poses. And again, even with the styling, we can see that Jennie does stick out with her Chanel Oh Sorry. I actually can't tell what brand that is on account of the tape. But my goodness, fans were absolutely angry. I was getting spammed and spammed and spammed about how I should include her in the thumbnail. I needed to include her in the thumbnail. She's always forgotten, and, you know, it was pretty reprehensible of me to do that in the first place. So I ended up taking, you know, one of the only good pictures that I could find from this stage, but which included another member as well. I had to switch a few things around, but I made it work. It wasn't quite the aesthetic that I was going for, but it ended up working. And that was kind of like one of the only pictures that I really could use, which brought up a lot of thoughts, because the more I would make thumbnails, the more I was like, oh my god, people are gonna get mad if I do not include her. I need to make more of an effort from now on. So the more I would try to look for pictures of her, the more I realized that like they were kind of hard to find, and even if I did find them, a lot of them were quite awkward. So I thought, let's do a little scientific Google analysis here. Like, I don't want to start any rumors, but why does she lack so many stage pictures? Now, keep in mind, I do not use any fan site photos because fan sites hate me, so we stick with official photos here. But yeah, let's take a look. So if I search her name next to Inkigayo, right? They don't really fuck with Mnet. I don't know why. Mnet does such stunning, high quality pictures of idols, but they don't for Blackpink for whatever reason. There's these Mnet photos, but they're not high quality, and I cannot find the original Naver post for the high quality pictures. These are just re-uploaded pictures. Again, terrible quality. But I digress. So we have this picture from their Do era, but you know, Lisa's butt is in the picture. Rude. This picture is admittedly a really good photo. This one is quite old and admittedly not the highest quality, but if push came to shove, I could use it. Now, of course, these are just the top results, but I did want to compare it to other members. Now, I thought, let's compare this to Jennie's pictures, but I don't think that's fair because she did have a lot of solo stages, notably with Inkigayo, so I don't think it's fair to kind of make that comparison. She obviously already has a lot more stage photos, a lot more official stage photos. So let's look up Rosie. And right off the bat, like in the top results, there's already 5 pictures right here that I think would be really great for the thumbnail that I like to make. Same goes for Lisa. And admittedly, she does have a little bit older pictures mixed in with the newer pictures, but I mean, there's a lot of usable pictures anyways. So through that super scientific analysis, I've come to the conclusion that Google is rigged. I'm kidding. But we do see that she does appear a lot less often in search results. And when she does, it tends to be kind of awkward pictures or, you know, lower quality pictures. Interesting finds. What happened to all her stage photos, and why are the good ones covered with people's butts? I don't know. But now that we know the story of my thumbnail fiasco, let me tell you a little bit of my theory as to why I think YG kind of uploaded their photos in the original sequence that excluded her originally. So for me, I explained I was looking for photos that would catch people's attention the most. So higher quality photos that didn't feature anyone in the background, that didn't have anyone beside anyone so that the member could be perfectly centered, so that you wouldn't really get distracted by seeing kind of someone on the side of them, if that makes sense. Making thumbnails is a whole ass art, but sometimes you can get away with just like a random ass picture with a little bit of text and people go crazy over that. And then you spend 5 hours making one thumbnail and then people like, the video flops, they don't get it. So as I mentioned, I felt personally there was a bit of a lack of like high quality pictures of her. However, on that same note, we talked about how she tends to have more minimalistic looks. And this is done through styling. If you look at my do outfit roasting, you'll see she gets a lot of very, very simple outfits. But anyways, when I said, I had a set of 3 pictures to choose from, I picked the 3 most interesting high quality pictures. So similarly, I think YG had a set of 3, right? That's how Instagram works. And to have like a cohesive theme, sometimes you would take like a blank photo and then put a set of 4 if you have 4 members and then another blank photo. So in doing so, I feel like for the first picture, they wanted to pick the most interesting pictures. And of course, Rosie and Jennie have the most interesting looks, and Lisa as well, especially with the red hair or even the black hair with the piercings. Like, there's that level of interest, right? And for whatever reason, they gave her just a really minimalistic styling. And her makeup is very minimalistic, and we don't really see much of a change in her looks compared to the rest of the members. I mean, Jennie has some blonde and very dramatic makeup. Rosie also has very dramatic makeup and blue hair. And Lisa in this picture, she does have darker hair, but very harsh eyeliner. And then in this photo, very bright red hair. So from a marketing point of view, like to catch people's attention, you would pick the most interesting pictures. Down the line, in their heads, they're like, we are including all 4 members. I mean, within the thread, there are all 4 members. But then they didn't think about the grand picture of it all, right? They were just thinking, aesthetically, it's going to look good like this. So perhaps it just really easily slipped their minds because they picked the most interesting pictures, which is odd because the most interesting pictures by design were created by them. Like, they created the concept for this comeback. Like, I don't fucking know. And then when fans got angry and pointed out their favoritism, because that's essentially what it is, they quickly realized it and then deleted them and re-uploaded them in a different sequence to center everybody. But this also kind of isn't a first, right, of her not being, centered in anything, because as we can see, even through thumbnails, we will see Jennie is in the thumbnail for Boombaya. She's also in the thumbnail for Playing with Fire. I mean, even for the fake music video for Forever Young, which is honestly probably the closest thing we will ever get to a music video for Forever Young, and the fake music video for Don't Know What to Do, we still see Jennie centered as the thumbnail. Lisa is in the thumbnail for Stay, Rosie is in the thumbnail for Whistle, and for every music video after that, all 4 members are centered, but she's never been featured alone in the thumbnail compared to the other members. I do want to point out that not everyone feels this way. There's a lot of people who think that blinks are just being dramatic, which wouldn't put it past them. There are a lot of people saying that she's the most loved member and pointing to a lot of instances that prove this. So let's take a look at some of those. Reason number 1 is that BLACKPINK have the best line distributions in K-pop. That's not a scientific fact, but I mean, I can confirm that they do have a really amazing line distributions among the members. So on the lower end of the line distribution chain, we have songs like See You Later and Do 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 that feature, line distributions that are still honestly quite fair, but not the fairest if you compare them to songs on the higher end, such as Kill This Love and Whistle. And not to call out my other faves, but I have definitely seen a lot worse. And you might be thinking, that's not really hard for a 4-member girl group, but you know what? Sistar says hi. I mean, quite frankly, Let's Talk About Love was a very iconic line within the song, but just to have 8% compared to a whopping 57% is definitely a little bit fishy. She also has a crazy amount of supporters. You know, anytime these instances of mistreatment come about, there's always so many people defending her and actually creating change. Like, the amount of harassment that is done on her behalf really makes people change their tune. Like, especially when I made this thumbnail and then changed it to this thumbnail. And now I have no scientific data to back up the next claim, but it also seems that she has the most non-blink stans. A very common comment that I've seen on my channel is like, I don't like BLACKPINK, but I stan Jisoo. But even with all of that being said, even if sometimes other members get left out as well, such as Lisa in this Oland ad. We also saw a lot of fans come to her defense and, you know, demand Oland change the posters to include all 4 members, and we've seen that it actually happened. Or even if other members get less lines than her, I think no matter what, you know, the instances that show us her exclusion outweigh it all. And it's just not enough for Blinks. In fact, I know it's not enough for Blinks, and we've seen what the toxic side of the fandom is really capable of, the harassment they can incite in the name of their idols. And I think that's something that I wanted to touch on briefly in this video, because it's also something that I personally went through almost a year ago. There's something that's been brought to my attention, and I did want to touch on it really quickly, and that is, you know, these BLACKPINK impersonators. Literally, who cares if they look like your idols? Why are you bullying them? You know, I've had people tag some of them in my own posts on Instagram being like, you should expose them for being copycats. First of all, in what world do you think that behavior is acceptable? Like, your behavior. You know, I've been really open in the past about how hate has affected me, and it follows you. It fucks you up, literally. Yes, I can joke about my scandals sometimes, but the truth is, it sticks with you. And it's like, it seems ridiculous to me sometimes when I say it out loud, because it's like, it's just the internet. But at the same time, you know, online hate really can affect people, and the thing is, you will never understand until it happens to you. It's so easy to stand behind your screen and be like, just get off the internet. That's very reductive, and it's not that simple. It can be absolutely debilitating to receive that much hate, and I hope that if you're one of these people like harassing these girls, that you really rethink what it is you're doing in this life, because it's not productive in the slightest for the goals that you think you have in mind. BLACKPINK do not care if people copy them. That's literally what they're there for. I was talking to Markley Spears about this, and she was saying, you know, that's literally the point of an idol's marketability, their ability to sell things, their ability to sell shitty Samsung phones. But you know what I mean? Their ability to sell their look, to sell certain fashions. She was literally like, they're meant to be trendsetters, they're meant to be copied, and I couldn't agree more. You know, when an idol accidentally promotes a laundry detergent or some random lip balm, you don't call people creepy for going and fucking selling that stuff out. Because I bought that lip balm too. It looked fancy as hell. Anyways, I just really wanted to talk very briefly about that. You know, it's ridiculous to me that just because someone looks like your idol, that who cares if they're getting clout from it? Like, what business is it of yours? If they look alike, if they have the same hair color, who cares? Anyways, be kind. Sorry for that little rant. I just felt very inclined to say something. So here are some final thoughts. So in theory, you would think it would be easier to center everyone equally in a 4-member group compared to like an 8-member group, right? But I think that in the world of K-pop, no matter what, there's always going to be favoritism. And I actually have a whole video about that if you want to check it out after this one. There's always one member who's going to be favored over the others, and consequently, one member who consequently seems to get the butt end of the deal. And we do see this with every single K-pop group. Every single K-pop group, from 4-member girl groups to 8-member girl groups to it always happens. However, for Jisoo in particular, I feel like it causes the most anger because, number one, we seem to have a smaller sample size, so therefore we are more prone to noticing that she's the one who is mistreated. Whereas in an 8-member girl group, if you're focusing on 1, 2, or 3 members, it's kind of harder to pinpoint one specific member that seems to be the most mistreated. Through our own perception, I'm not accusing anyone of anything. YG already distract with my play button. I'm not trying to get sued. So yeah, given our smaller sample size, I think we are just prone to noticing it more, despite this being quite the norm within the industry itself. Or another theory, a less popular theory that I don't think a lot of people talk about, maybe she gets the most simple outfits because YG is smart as hell. Maybe these instances of mistreatment are purposely done to stir up some shit. Because when this type of mistreatment is brought up, what do people do? They go on Twitter and they talk about BLACKPINK. And then what else happens? They go and they spam YG's comment section. They spam BLACKPINK's comment section. And what do you think that does? That helps the algorithm. So here's how things work. The more comments you get on something, the more likely the website in question is going to push that content out, right? So I think it's no surprise that a lot of companies do this. They'll kind of do something wrong purposefully to kind of get traction, get clout for certain projects. It's not unheard of. It's not like this has never been done before. So it's not that it's unheard of, but you know, sometimes I wonder, like, these instances, they're such like little simple minute elements, right? Like having more simple styling, is that really a big deal? Or does YG have such a great understanding of K-pop fans that they can essentially do these little things that can piss people off without pissing them off too much to where people would kind of unstand? There are some scandals, of course, that aren't planned, because there are some scandals that literally ruin images. But I wonder, I think about this sometimes. It's interesting to think about, though. And I know I just said that this is a norm within the industry. However, with a group like BLACKPINK, it does seem a little bit odd. Like, why do you have such amazing line distributions, but then you go and pull some shit like this? So maybe a stunt like this is really just to help the algorithm, to help promote How You Like That, coming out on June 26th at 6 p.m. KST. I don't know, though. So with all this evidence in mind, I would love to know what you guys think. Do you think Blinks look way too much into things? Do you think analyzing how often she's covered in choreography is a little too far? Do you think analyzing how often she appears in search results is also going a little too far? Even in the name of science? Or do you genuinely believe she's being mistreated without any ulterior motives from YG to help the algorithm? So again, I have a video on favoritism if you're interested in that, but on the other end of that, if you would like me to go more in depth about the mistreatment of idols within K-pop groups, then I can also do that as well. As for me, I'm gonna head out, but since you made it this far, you might as well click on another one of my videos. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share this video with friends you don't have. And you can also join my channel memberships to help support this channel in a different way. These are the lovely individuals who make up my current channel members. A huge thank you for your support. Anyways, I'm gonna get going. Bye!